Hey, what's going on, everybody? Alex with you here again. Thank you for dropping by for yet another chess video. Now, some people have recently been commenting more and more saying if I could go back to some of the chess sets that I've previously reviewed and maybe do some games or show some tutorial videos on those chess sets. There's been a lot of people that have been watching my previous video on how to play chess, and I know that video has been really quite rudimentary, like on level 0. I'm not really sure if today's video could be considered partly a tutorial video, but what I wanted to do is I wanted to take out my chess set together with you guys to the park today, because I know there's a lot of people that would benefit from, advice like this, even though once again it's on a very beginner's level. But this is the the folding walnut board, the video to which I've done probably close to a year ago or so, and the pieces are one of the newer ones that I've actually purchased. This is the Cooke chess set, I believe, from the House of Staunton. This is slowly becoming kind of one of my go-to sets, even though it's the box, as we've seen, that I purchased for, it's a little bit big. I still think this is a really nice and kind of a well-sized chess set. We'll just take a look and see what you guys think. First and foremost, the biggest tip that I would give anybody is during the openings. There's going to be some people that are very pro memorizing openings and learning about every single opening out there, kind of looking into, really taking the time to analyze everything. I've played against some players who would know every single opening out there, and no matter what move you do, they're going to be like, oh, this is this particular opening with this particular variation. You're like, I'm glad you know your openings. But I usually don't play that way, simply because I've tried learning openings before, and it sort of creates a situation in which you you can sort of start relying on memorizing the moves, and then you end up kind of not doing as much thinking, especially in the beginning, and you can get yourself in a little bit of a jam, especially if the opening kind of has some variability to it. E2 to E4, a lot of times the opponent will open the same way. At this point you have quite a few things that you could do. Especially for people that are starting out. They're kind of thinking, well, okay, I made my first move, what do I do now? What's the best move? Well, there's going to be a number of moves that might be good. There's going to be a number of moves that might be okay. So the computer believes every time you make a move, no matter how good the move is, it's still not as good as not making a move. Essentially, every time you make a move, there's a slight bit of like a drop. There's no ideal move. It's kind of funny paradox, I guess you could call it. But so anyways, in this particular situation, what can we do? We can play offensively, we can play defensively, we can start to develop with tempo, or we can kind of build our army and protect against what the opponent might do to us. The very normal, usual opening would be something like this, where you take out your knight and you're developing a piece, so you're kind of going normal as far as the tempo of the game, and you're also attacking this piece, which this pawn right now here is not protected. So that's a really very common opening, but because it's so common, it's played so quite often, and as a result, many people they know this line of play. The beginning, they'll take out their knight 2, and then you have, and I've shown this before in some of my videos, and then you could continue to either develop the pawn here. That's a pretty aggressive move there. You're immediately jumping into combat. Some people play more aggressively than others. This move here really forces people to start liquidating pieces right away, but what this kind of helps to do is it sort of creates a little bit more of an open play for a lot of people. So I like to have an open play. You don't necessarily need to do that, but let's say you did go with that route and the opponent did accept the exchange, and you might have, at this point right here, you may want to consider a number of options. Once again, there's a lot of interesting things at play here. You can attack the knight here. We don't necessarily need to take this pawn. We can certainly take it and just follow the regular line of play, but you could do a number of things. You could either go with the counter offense here and try to push his knight out of the way, because at this point the knight is the only thing that's protecting this pawn here. And if we can push the knight out of the way, which he may or may not do, because he could always do something like this along those lines, which now he's attacking our bishop and he's telling us, okay, we'll call your bluff and see what you're gonna do. And if for instance we were to take it, and he would probably, I'm not sure if that's a good move, but he may want to open up the queen, so that way the queen is protecting the pawn. Once again, that pawn sitting there, it's a good pawn, and one would probably want to keep it protected, because if you take this with the other pawn, you know, well, this pawn can now be taken away. Whether it's a good thing long term or not, I feel like if we, and once again we have a number of things that we can take it with. We can take it with a knight, or we could take it with a queen. If we take it with the queen, I usually don't like to bring out my queen too early, because then you can have things like that, you know, more aggressive behavior from the opposite team, I guess you could call it, and then you could still do a number of things, but let's go back to where we were beforehand and sort of put ourselves in this situation once again. Where were we? Right here. So you could do this and you could play offensively. I like to play offensively just because I only have about 10 minutes per side, and so if I'm playing a close game, that's a really much more you know, thought-provoking game. When you're playing and everything's kind of closed in, pieces are interlocked, it's awesome to play those games, but the problem is I don't have time for that. So I like to play more open games like this. So alternatively, you could always play a little bit less aggressively, and you could take out another knight, for which the opponent might take out a knight for, you know, just because what you're doing is hopefully you're going to want a castle at some point within the next couple of moves, maybe just so that you can help to protect the king, and then maybe bring out the rook to the e-file, so that way you can start kind of hopefully creating some kind of trajectory upon which you're going to be fighting the opponent. And that's another thing, when a lot of times the beginners will look at a position, it's kind of like this, and they don't really know what's the best move, what's their next best move. One advice that I want to give for that is that, simply put, if you don't really know what your next move should be, just let the opponent make a move. If you don't know what the opponent's gonna make, try to make a move where it's at least defensive in some way. So for example, you can go for offense. Once again, at this point you can bring out the pawn, or maybe you could protect this knight here, because oftentimes the opposite person, or whatever, the player, he can take out the pawn here and try to do what you wanted to do with this, and maybe it's not such a bad idea to preemptively take out the pawn there, because also taking out the pawn here would kind of help to protect us from this knight going here, because although right now at this point this knight going here isn't gonna do us any major good, because right now we can still do this, and then, you know, the knight wouldn't have anywhere to go. But if the pieces were slightly a little bit more developed, and you don't really have anything to protect this particular square, this is a very, very interesting square that the opponent could start to sort of push their pieces around this way and kind of attacking maybe from the side back into the center. So like I said, it's always good. Same goes here. There's a square here that you may want to keep an eye on. There's less protection going on over here, so it might be a good idea to start thinking in terms of defense. What I'm gonna do in this particular case is I'm just gonna go ahead and I'm gonna open up the game a little bit. So it's easier for me once I open things up. It's easier to see. At this point, well, the opponent can do it once again, a number of things. I'd hate to think for both people, but either way, he doesn't necessarily need to take the pawn with his pawn, or the pawn with say a knight. He could, of course he could, but it's up to him at this point, you know, what he might want to do. Clearly there's a move like this now that the pawn's open, so you can sort of block this piece from moving, which all of a sudden now exposes this pawn here, because once you've blocked that, you now need to protect this. So now you're now one step behind, because instead of maybe pushing this pawn forward, you have to worry about this pawn now. So you may want to do this. However, if you do that, all of a sudden this pawn is protected, no longer protected by the queen. So if he were to double up, which he is doubled up, now he can take this pawn quicker, and now you have a bigger problem. So obviously we don't even want to consider this option. We really want to consider maybe pushing the pawn forward, but once again it exposes this pawn, so now we're a little bit of a pickle. So you kind of have to think, okay, well, I got a couple of things going on here. This in and of itself isn't necessarily that bad of an opening. You could, of course, go a little bit more aggressively and tell them to, okay, we know that there's something going on over here, but if you do that, once again this pawn is left hanging, because the knight here is really eyeing that piece. So your biggest problem right now is those two pieces, and what you're willing to do about that situation. What I would probably do, I would probably just go ahead and do this, because that way, just like he immobilized your knight here, immobilize, or try to partially immobilize the knight here, because that way you're sort of kind of protecting this, at least for the for the time being. And also you're not putting anything in the way of your queen and this piece over here. So now that you've done that, the opponent can probably continue maybe doing something like this, once again putting pressure. He could do that, and if he were to do that, of course you have the opportunity to take. So maybe that's not the best thing to do right now. Now he doesn't necessarily need to do that. He could always castle, because castling also gives you an advantage in this particular situation, because you could then push the rook out quickly. Once all this starts liquidating, you might be able to have a clear shot at the king, because the king is not yet castled in this case, and there's a bishop in the way, whereas there's no bishop in the way here, so the castling can be done a lot more quickly now. Once again, it's really a matter of how aggressively you want to play, how much do you want to take advantage of the opponent's weaknesses. This isn't necessarily bad, so let's just go ahead and do that. And then in this case, there's a couple of things that we can do. What we can do, one is we can sort of prevent this from happening, and we can maybe start by going this way, but maybe not, because if we're now gonna be pushing forward to the knight here, well, what do we have? We can have the knight come over here, and if then this knight takes let's say that, let's just imagine this scenario, and the knight comes here. Well, maybe not, I don't know. If the knight came here, then we took here, and then took here. I mean, not bad. That's not bad. So maybe that's not bad for the white. So maybe the knight wouldn't necessarily want to go here. Certainly, you know, the knight would probably want to. You could always go back, or you can take. There's another thing. You can just go ahead and take, and clear the field, the playing field a little bit. You could always take here if you wanted to, which would double up the pawns here, and that it would make that knight a little bit less likely to go here. So you kind of did yourself in a little bit, but maybe at that point we can kind of remobilize if we can. There's really no point of going here because, well, we could go here and then here, but no, I don't think so. So maybe not the best option here, but it's kind of hard to do a video and play the game at the same time. But I think this combination of a chess set with this board is really nice. It's very luxurious and very luxurious looking, but at the same time, this is the type of setup that you don't mind like taking somewhere to play with a friend or even potentially at a tournament. So for any beginner chess player that is watching my video right now, what kind of advice can I give them as far as improving their chess skills? Consistency, of course, is the very foundation of improving upon anything, really. You have to be consistent. You have to put in the time every day to either play chess, or, which brings me to my very first point, is doing chess puzzles. If you have the opportunity to do chess puzzles out there, whether it's on chess.com or Elite Chess, or maybe using just an old classical approach of getting a puzzle book or something, then I think overall that would really be beneficial and helpful to a lot of beginner chess players out there, because doing chess puzzles helps to sort of train the mind to recognize patterns, different tactical maneuvers out there, things that maybe are not readily apparent to a lot of people. If you do a lot of chess puzzles, it really starts to kind of help you see chess positions in a sort of a different way. Now, having said that, don't get locked into just doing chess puzzles. Chess puzzles are really fun, and like I've mentioned before in some of my videos, doing chess puzzles only is actually really quite fun, and it takes away that that competition, maybe the anxiety of having to play somebody else, or even having the anxiety of losing a chess game. If that's, something that the anxiety, the disappointment of losing a chess game, when you're playing chess puzzles or solving chess puzzles, you're really not starting or finishing any actual chess games. It's more like, hey, what is this? Did I solve it? Did I not solve it? So a lot of times, and this is the same goes for me, because I used to do a lot of chess puzzles exclusively. I think when I started doing this chess channel, I was doing chess puzzles every day, but only chess puzzles, because that's pretty much the only thing I had time for. In fact, I remember I was spending somewhere between 60 minutes to 2 hours doing chess puzzles every day, in between work, in between, whenever I had a little bit of time at home, before bed, maybe a little bit in the morning. So yes, it does train your brain. It does keep you occupied. It does help you stay focused on, chess. And yes, when I went back and I played with my good friend Larry, who watches my channel here all the time, it was great, because I was able to see so many different nuances, so many different tactical things, that basically it made me somewhat of a strong player. However, doing chess puzzles only and reaching a certain, say, rating on chess puzzles can give you a false sense of chess proficiency, because I got up to, I think, about 2,550 or 2,560 on chess.com chess puzzles, but I wasn't that good of a chess player by any means. It's simply because as long as you get above maybe 60% accuracy rate on the chess puzzles, you will eventually, inevitably, you'll get your chess rating or chess puzzle rating up there if you stick around. For me, it's always nice to have some kind of an anchor in my life with all the other things that are going on, and life constantly changes no matter whether we like it or not. And to have an anchor such as chess, to where we can go back and we know, hey, I can go back to that chessboard, and even though life could become different in many different ways, there's not much that's going to change on those 64 squares that you haven't seen before. So it's nice to be consistent with something that is consistent in itself. So chess is consistent, and being consistent in that sort of brings a balance to life in a way that kind of helps you to also deal with other things. I have a lot of respect for the game of chess. I'm not that good at it, but I have a lot of respect for it. There's a number of reasons why. First, the game has not been developed by me. It's been developed a long time ago, and it's been modified, and the game is played by so many people, and I'm just grateful that I'm alive today and I can play the game that I have not invented. And I'm also really grateful for having online chess, because I'm just grateful for people out there who might also have busy schedules in their day to be able to sit down somewhere in some part of the world and say, okay, I'm gonna take this next, half an hour to an hour or whatever. They're taking that time out of their busy schedule, and they might also be a busy person, to be able to sit down and play a game with you. When we play chess, we play chess a lot, we sort of train our brain to take the emotional aspect out of the equation as much as possible. Okay, somebody took your piece that you forgot about or whatever, somebody took your pawn, somebody took your knight or whatever. Now is not the time to lash out and not being, rational. That's what chess teaches us in life too. We maybe have our ups and downs in life, and we need to approach life in this way, the same way. We just have to rationally lay out our options and make the best decision possible from that point. And if you start doing that, and chess in a way can really help us to partly improve upon that skill. But if we start to think of life in terms of that, then we start to become a little bit less anxious about what may lie ahead, because we might say, well, we really don't know. Nobody really knows the future. Nobody knows, what the outcome of this or that might be. So a lot of times we may feel the anxiety within us because we don't know whether or not we're going to be able to deal with it. Think about it, and if we say, okay, we have a certain methodology, and we know that if there's going to be problems in the future that will arise, that we can lay them out like a chess problem and think to the best of our ability. And this could be advice for anybody out there that you've dealt with things so far, and more or less were successful. If you make a mistake too, because some people, they'll say, well, I don't know, what if I make a mistake? What if we don't do something right or whatever? What if it, then too, it's a learning experience. Same with chess, some people, they'll play chess, but then at some points they'll stop playing chess because they're afraid of letting their rating drop or whatever. So if you lose, if you make some bad moves and you lose, well, so be it. It's like I said, it's great to be able to learn from your mistakes. And chess is one of those neutral type of things where it's partly simulating life and life's dilemmas and difficulties, but it has really little to no consequence on whether or not we get things right or wrong. Like in life, if we get things wrong, well, then we might have some consequences. But in chess, that's what makes chess so special. So hopefully you guys have enjoyed this video. I know, as always, I've enjoyed making it. I enjoyed sharing things with you. I know there's a lot of people out there that are watching my videos on their TV or on their computer or on their phone. And as always, I'm very thankful for people taking their time to view my videos. And be sure to stick around. And I'll hopefully be able to make another video here soon. See you guys later.